Following the release of Computer Space, Bushnell and Dabney broke ties with Nutting Associates. They had wanted a 33% stake in the company, but Nutting found this demand unacceptable. The pair broke off and sought to incorporate Syzygy, the company they had founded upon leaving Ampex in 1969. Discovering that there was already a company called Syzygy, they began searching for a new name. Syzygy is an astronomical term that refers to when one celestial body is in conjunction or opposition with another. Seeking an equally prophetic name for their new company, Bushnell turned to the ancient Chinese board game Go, of which he was an avid player. In Go, players take turns placing stones on an 18 by 18 grid game board, hoping to encircle and thus capture their opponent's pieces. If a player finds themselves in a position where there is only one possible move to avoid capture, that situation is called Atari. Bushnell and Dabney took this name for their new company, and Atari was officially incorporated on June 27, 1972. That very same day, Atari hired its first employee, a young engineer named Alan Alcorn. Alcorn was inexperienced when it came to programming, and for training purposes, Bushnell charged him with coding up a very basic game, just for practice. Bushnell chose the tennis game he had seen at the Odyssey display, finding it to be very simple and, frankly, rather boring. He figured it was the sort of thing even a novice like Alcorn could figure out. Bushnell may have viewed the assignment as nothing more than a programming exercise, but Alcorn took his task very seriously. Rather than directly emulate the Odyssey, he made several adjustments to the game. The Odyssey's tennis program allowed players to move their paddles anywhere they wanted, even into each other's territory, and the ball would only travel in a straight line, unless one of the players manually changed its trajectory with a secondary knob marked English. As James Rolfe put it, the Odyssey's program was a fucking free-for-all, which may have had something to do with why Bushnell was unimpressed. Alcorn's version, by contrast, was much more refined. The paddles were fixed at either side of the screen, and could only move up or down. The player could not change the direction of the ball mid-flight, but hitting the ball with different parts of the paddle would change its trajectory. He also added rudimentary sound effects, and a score tracker. Bushnell may not have thought much about the Odyssey's tennis program, but when he and Dabney found themselves playing Alcorn's version for hours each night after work, they knew they had something on their hands. Bushnell named this new game Pong, and Atari swiftly got to work on a prototype. The first Pong machine was ready in September of 1972, and to test it out they installed it at a local bar in Sunnyvale, California called Andy Capp's Tavern. As the machine went on its test run, Bushnell flew to Chicago to meet with pinball and slot machine giant Bally, hoping to secure a manufacturing contract for Pong. Bally was not interested. Upon returning, Bushnell got a call from Andy Capp's saying that the Pong machine had stopped working. When he went to investigate, he found the source of the problem. The coin box had been absolutely stuffed with quarters. At a time when $50 a week was considered a good take for a coin-op machine, Pong was bringing in over 4 times that amount. So many people showed up to play the game that the line literally went out the door, with queues forming up long before the bar even opened. Despite Pong's success, Atari had a hard time finding a manufacturer. Bushnell once again approached Bally, this time with the game's revenue figures, but they still refused. The equally large Chicago coin was similarly disinterested. Atari even went back to their old partner Nutting Associates, but were unable to strike a deal. Running out of options, Bushnell and Dabney made the bold decision to manufacture the game themselves. Taking every penny they had, they scraped together enough cash to build 11 Pong cabinets. If those cabinets didn't sell, Atari would be finished. But they did sell. The 11 units shipped very quickly, with each one bringing in $900 against its $280 manufacturing cost. With their coffers replenished, Atari made 50 more units, which also sold with lightning speed. Everywhere Pong went, money came in. And as word of this new and incredibly profitable machine spread across the industry, Atari was flooded with orders. They soon ran out of space at their cramped offices in Santa Clara, and decided that the only way forward was to build a factory of their own. Banks were hesitant to loan money to Atari. Despite the clear profitability of video games, they were still unknown to most people, and the coin-op amusement industry, largely due to its historical connection with organized crime, had a tarnished reputation. That Bushnell was a young, long-haired hippie didn't help. Nevertheless, Wells Fargo agreed to loan Atari $50,000, less than Bushnell was hoping for, but enough to get a new factory off the ground. They set up shop in a disused roller rink and went to the local unemployment office to find workers. They were horrible, Bushnell said. We had a bunch of heroin addicts and things like that. They were stealing our TVs. We were young and dumb is what I like to say. But we learned quickly. By the end of 1973, Atari had sold 8,000 units of Pong, bringing in millions of dollars. Seeing Atari's success, several companies began making their own thinly veiled Pong knockoffs. Florida-based Allied Leisure made Paddle Battle and Super Soccer. California-based Ramtech made Volley. Even companies that had initially rejected Pong got in on the trend. Bally came up with a game called Winner. Chicago Coin, TV Tennis. Nutting Associates, Computer Spaceball. And this is just a smattering of the clones that profligated in Pong's wake. Pong mania was so great that it even spread internationally. In Japan, a coin-op machine manufacturer called Taito made Japan's first arcade video game machine in the form of Pong. A French billiard company called René Pierre made Smatch, while in Italy, pinball manufacturer Zaccaria made TV Joker. And these were just the arcade versions of Pong. Magnavox was still making the Odyssey, and after realizing that Pong was far more engaging than pointing to states on a map, future versions of the console focused almost exclusively on Pong-like experiences. As with Atari's arcade cabinet, Magnavox's home console had its glut of imitators. In addition to his Odyssey review, James Rolfe also made an excellent video about the various Pong consoles made throughout the 1970s. Numerous electronic companies and department stores made, or at least licensed, their own Pong machines, such as Glorytone's Video Olympiad and General Home Products' Wonder Wizard. Pong knockoffs could even be found internationally. There was the Australian Videotronic, the Brazilian Telejogo, the East German Bildschirmspiel, and in Japan, the color TV game was being produced by a small toy company called Nintendo. We'll be hearing a lot more about them later. All told, these Pong consoles, as they've come to be known, represent what historians now call the first generation of home video game machines.